Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me tonight. And today's our topic is the future of work flexibility in the tech industry. So again, thank you for finding some time this evening to join our live discussion. As usual, please introduce yourselves in the comments. Let us know what you do and join our conversation with your comments and questions. So if you're new to my show, I'm Jana Martins. I'm currently working in IT consultancy, and I'm passionate about learning more about present and future of the tech industry, and also obviously share my findings with you on this YouTube channel. So tonight, as I said, we're going to talk about the future of the work flexibility in tech industry. And Edan is going to share his story, his experience, and also some pretty impressive statistics when it comes to choosing your next new workplace based on your working arrangements. So incredibly relevant topic now, especially in post-COVID era. So please make sure tag and share it with your colleagues and friends who need to hear this. And before I'll pass it on to Eden to introduce himself, just want to quickly remind you that, as usual, we're going live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So if you want to watch replay, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, IT Career in Australia. So I'm going live there every Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. Melbourne time, with various experts from my network. And we're talking about all the things around IT career, job search, and specifics of IT industry in Australia. So also encourage you, as usual, to join my meetup group, so to make sure you get notifications about upcoming discussions. And please don't be shy, ask us questions, join our conversation. We'll try to answer all your questions from all the platforms. And as usual, I encourage you to, use this live stream as your opportunity, not only, learn new information or listen to new information, but to network with people in the industry as well. So some people saying hi. Oh, here you go, Jason. Hi, Jason. Hi, Jason. We were talking about you just before this live stream.
Your ears were burning, Jason.
There you go. It looks like you're in Thailand. How exciting. So jealous. Absolutely jealous.
There's flexibility for you. I hope you're not working there though, Jason. Hope you're enjoying the beach and relaxing.
Yeah, obviously checking LinkedIn, so that's alarming. And so guys, please make sure to say hi. So it's always great to hear from you, because if you're not saying hi, it's feels like we're talking with the crickets. James is here as well. Thank you, James, for joining us. And that's enough of me. So passing on to Eden to introduce himself.
Sure. Please. Hi, thank you so much, Anna. It's such a pleasure to join you tonight. I've been an avid watcher of your webinars. I love the content that's going out there, and it's great to join you today to talk about, I guess, that ever-evolving, changing beast of work flexibility that just keeps growing and evolving. So really exciting topic. I've got a lot of opinions, and we've got some really exciting stats to share today, but those who don't know me, and funny, we were just talking about Jason online. I used to run the talent team for Flybys. I had a bit of a change in career, and we'll talk about career flexibility. But I do a lot of things now. I run an online support group for recruiters, which is called Rubber Band. That's the logo in the background. I run creative workshops using floristry for team building and team planning, which is exciting. And I'm also still a recruiter a few days a week. So I recruit for live hire as well, and technology recruitment. So yeah, I'm really glad to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me along tonight, Jana.
Thank you, Eden. Yeah, sounds like some career flexibility there for sure.
Absolutely. I think it is a big driver for a lot of people, and we're seeing, a big rise in contingent workforce and rise in freelancing and people that are kind of wanting to own their career in a different way and wanting to control it rather than doing your set 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, same job every day. It's a big trend that's evolving, and one that I'm really embracing. I'm having a lot of fun. I'm busier than I've ever been, though. I didn't anticipate that.
Yeah, it's definitely, a few changes happened during COVID, and I think few realizations happened as well. Jason actually saying he's working a little bit, maybe a little bit.
I know what a busy man he is, I remember it well.
Nikita is saying hi, Zel. Thank you so much for saying hi, Nikita. So Edan, I guess you already mentioned a little bit what you're doing at the moment, but tell us a little bit, brief story about yourself, and I guess why you're talking about this topic today, why it's important for you.
Yeah, like I said, I think flexibility has been one of those things, and you mentioned it too, Jana, that really a light was really shone on it during COVID and during lockdowns, and how organizations responded to COVID and lockdowns. I mean, there we were, we all suddenly had to work from home. So a lot of organizations that really tested their digital capabilities as well. But anyway, we all got there, we all found our feet. And I think what happened from there is, as employees, we found that rhythm of how we could work best. And that's not necessarily saying, we all work best and are more productive from home, or on the other side, we're more productive, working from an office. It's that whole self and being able to work in the best way that best suits you. And I think that's why I'm really passionate about work flexibility, because it really changed my perception. As I mentioned, I wanted to have more control over my career. I wanted to have a career that had more variety, more creativity, being able to flex up, flex down as markets change, not be stuck in the same kind of, environmental way of working. And I think that we're going to see more and more of that, because I know I'm not alone in that decision that I've made. I know a lot of people that are going down that path, and, it's how we respond to what flexibility means now. Like I said, it's ever evolving and changing, and it keeps becoming bigger and bigger and more important to people. And we've got a lot of stats around it to share today as well that are really driving that message home. So it's exciting. I love talking about flexibility because the topic is endless. I don't know how we're going to cut off in an hour today, Jana. I can't stop talking already.
it will be hard, but I'm good at facilitating, okay? So I'll be cutting you off when needed.
I'm used to it.
So I guess one question that we want to ask you guys, what flexibility means for you, yeah? Because, when we hear the word flexibility, as we were discussing with Edan before this live stream, that when we hear the word flexibility, straight away we're thinking about, working from home, or, have a hybrid model or something like this. That's a kind of usually the first thing that comes in our mind. But is the flexibility is only about the working from home? Is it, something else? So I guess, we're going to go to some stats, and you guys please drop in the comments, like, what is really flexibility means for you? Yeah, curious to see your answers. What's flexibility means for you? And Edan, I guess we're starting with a bit of a stats from UK. Why from UK? And
And look, it's a good point. We know when I was sharing this with you, the reason I wanted to highlight a recent survey from Greenhouse, so a technology survey specifically around the trends that are happening in the UK. They were a little bit further in front of us in terms of inflation, in terms of cost of living, expect a lot of people, as it says there, 75% of employees expect a recession. So I guess the financial trends that were happening in the UK, but we tend to follow suit when it comes to employment conditions as well. We have very similar employee contracts, we have very similar union agreements to the UK. It tends to be the market that we look to predict what's going to be happening in Australia. So I really wanted to highlight a very recent survey. This is only in August. Right up the top, 3 in 4 British workers wanting hybrid work. Now, I want to talk about that in a little bit more detail, what hybrid work actually means later. But specifically to cope with the cost of living crisis that is gripping the United Kingdom. I think that's a really important point because, when we were talking earlier about flexibility meaning work from home, and, whether that just means that, it's easier because, I like to be able to work in my pajamas. It's more than that. There's actually a financial burden from being actually having to commute to go to the office, and to show that cost of living crisis is actually the driver for 3 in 4 British workers as to why they want to work in a hybrid environment is different to what we expected. That financial implication is really important.
And yeah, I guess, like even if we think about Melbourne, or probably Sydney would be a good example, like renting place closer to the city in Sydney will be significantly higher than renting out something, in, I don't know, Penrith.
Absolutely. And look, even I'm a great example. I moved to regional Victoria from Melbourne, from inner Melbourne. I was in St Kilda in October last year, and for that reason, it's a better cost of living here in regional Victoria. I'm not paying as high a mortgage as I was paying in Melbourne. But then I need to have at least hybrid work because we've got inflation. We've got the ridiculous costs of petrol that we're all facing. It's everything, so that added commute for me, even though it's improving my cost of living, if I was to commute into Melbourne every day, then those benefits that I've found by making that decision to move out of, Melbourne Metro is out the window. I may as well be back there. So, for me, flexibility in terms of, working from home is incredibly important. Things like, I mentioned petrol, but things like, the price of groceries and energies, the interest hikes and inflation, and 75% of employees expecting a recession. So I think what that's really telling us is, that flexibility, it's being driven by financial markets. And I think, if we were to have this conversation sort of 12 months ago, I don't think we'd be saying that's what's driving it and what's driving that need for flexibility. So it's really interesting trends coming.
Cost of the childcare. I think it's really burning topic for everyone. If they had the chance, to shuffle the responsibilities, and we all know how, the cost of childcare is quite expensive in Australia. So it's obviously adds up straight away.
Yeah, 100%. Public transport, everything, buying your lunch, all of those things that we kind of take for granted, that we can just slap a sandwich together in the kitchen when we work from home, right? But it all adds up. And the financial pressures that everyone is facing in Australia, and as those statistics show in the UK, important to show there that, if workplaces are refusing benefits like at least a possibility to work from home, you've got 24% of workers over 55 say they wouldn't leave their job. However, 53% of what we would call Gen Ys, I suppose, 23 to 34, they would quit. They would immediately quit. They would not actually stay in their role if they didn't have that benefit of flexibility. So it is so important that we're driving that message home to the companies that we're working in, or as candidates or as job seekers. Our expectation of that, it's so important that we're getting that message across and the reasons behind it. And I think that's why it was important for me to sort of talk about cost of living and the financial side of it, because we need to be talking about the why we want this. Like I said, it's not just because we want to stay at home and work in our pajamas with a blanket. You know, there are implications of not having it that are hitting our bottom line and our quality of life as well.
Yep. And sometimes it's simple things, just making doctor appointment and be able to, quickly go to a doctor appointment next to your house without actually taking like half a day off or, anything. Yeah.
Eating up your annual leave, right? Because you need to have a 1 hour doctor's appointment during the day. I mean, remember, we all had to do that. It seems like such a foreign concept before, but it's the reality of that pre-COVID working conditions.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Anything else in these stats that I guess important to mention?
Yeah, and we will go into this because it's going to be and the way flexibility and REM and salaries are intertwined is really important. But again, job security, high salaries, and flexible working being among the top benefits that employees value, and we've got some really interesting data from Australia on that as well. And people are wanting or expecting a pay rise due to the financial conditions too, and we'll talk about that in the Australian stats when we get there as well. So it's really interesting data that had come out of the UK, and we're seeing the trends now in Australia as our economy is going through what the UK economy is going through.
Definitely, and I think we have a comment from James regarding the flexibility. So the flexibility for James is being able to be flexible while studying full time as well.
Absolutely. It's not all about geographically where you work or working from home. It's also when you work and the time that you work, and not having to log on and log off from 9 till 6. I think that's a really important point to make, James, whether that be study or whether that be, other commitments that you have in your life, as, you mentioned, Yana, as a parent, or, even things like hobbies and sports and, social and recreational activities that you have part of your life. I think, workplace flexibility is not all about work from home and geographical. A lot of it is around the time. And we had, when I worked at Flybuys, we had an EVP video where, we talked about, I think we called them midnight coffee coders, when we're talking about, the technology, this is a technology meetup, so I'll try and keep it to technology, but those people that actually work better at night and being able to support that. People that are, what did we call them? Midnight coders, I think. Jason, you might remember. But, being able to celebrate what brings out the best in people is not just necessarily working from home. It's the time that you work. If you start work at 12 and work until into the night, or even if you're an evening worker, supporting that is really important.
And I think like a lot of us can feel like a lot of us have a different like body clock, and I think majority of us can see the patterns. Like I can definitely tell when I have this like drop during the day, then that's kind of nap time. Then you're just motivation, just you're going like, usually I think like more like after lunchtime, but you just the energy level just like drop low, and you just need maybe there's like a 15 minutes break just to reset, and so those things can really highly change the productivity as well, because if the person be able to take the break, then they really need to take this break and work a bit later that day, can be way more productive than pushing through that time of the low energy. Then you're still trying to do something, but you're just not producing as much, and as high results as well. So and everyone's really so everyone's different, and obviously it's really difficult for organization to try to take everyone in consideration. But so definitely we can work on some flexibility that can allow people to work on their energy levels as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I think what you touch on there in terms of everyone being different and flexibility at an individual level. Jason Burns, who's an EVP expert, describes it as flexibility with a little f, because it means something different to everyone. And if you've got flexibility that with a capital F that is corporatized, or that has a lot of policy, a lot of procedure, a lot of rules and regulations around it, it's actually not talking to the individual. And, you know, as we go through the data that's coming through in terms of employment drivers for candidates, it is that one-to-one. You know, we talk about tailoring our EVPs at that personalized level, but flexibility needs to be at a personalized level. If you've got flexibility that is, you know, you can work from home one day a week, but it has to be a Monday or whatever it is with all these rules and policies and procedures, then it's not flexibility. It's corporatized flexibility that actually doesn't mean anything. It needs to connect with the individual, and they need to have control and choice over it.
And you mentioned MVP a few times. What it stands for?
Oh,
for those who's listening.
Yeah. And of course, so employee value proposition. So really it is around how an organization markets their culture, their ways of working, what are their benefits, why do you want to join them? So that employee value proposition, but not just why you want to join them, what it means to the people that work there as well.
Yeah. And I guess let's dig into, you know, Australian report. What's, you know, Australian data show us these days in terms of, you know, candidates' motivation?
Oh, it's so interesting. And look, a big shout out to Simon Costa for actually sharing this with me. It's very hot off the press from Talensa. This is research that they've just completed and are releasing to the market at the moment. So we talked UK in August. We are now talking right up to September. So it's really showing how we're following.
And I guess before, you know, we dig into the statistic, guys, whoever is, you know, listening us live, or, you know, if you're watching replay as well, would love to see your comments. So please share with us what's important, you know, for you at the moment, you know, when you're changing a job, when you're looking for, you know, looking for the new role. Yeah, please share with us, and, you know, curious to see, you know, if it's contribute to statistic as well.
Absolutely. And this, I should point this out as well. You know, as we're talking about employee value proposition, this is specifically for technology, the technology industry. So this isn't, you know, it doesn't include contact centers or retail workers or, you know, people in building and construction. This is specifically technology.
Yep. Cool.
Excellent. So what are people valuing the most? Attractive salary and benefits is now our number one driver when we're attracted to an organization, or when we are working within an organization and choose to stay within an organization. Now, how do you feel about that, Jan? Does that surprise you?
After February 24th, no.
Yeah.
So, like, I think, you know, don't want to bring any politics in mind at the moment, but I think, you know, with situations happening in Russia and Ukraine, and I'm not going to comment anything here because, you know, I'm Russian myself, and, you know, I have a lot of Ukrainian relatives and don't want to dig into those topics. But I think the fear is always, you know, also big motivation to everyone. And, you know, if you know that something happening in the world like that, you know, the basic needs suddenly became the most important ones. And, like, I'm not surprised that people would say now that, you know, the importance of the salary and benefits, because you want to feel safe, that, you know, you want to feel safe no matter what's happening in the world at the moment.
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. It is world events. It's a really great example. And that can be, I mean, it could even be the death of Queen Elizabeth II. You know, not that will be in that data, but we might see that more as well. The world is quite uncertain at the moment. There are terrible things happening in the world. There are scary things happening in the world. Then we've got, as we talked earlier, we've got the financial situation. We have poverty, we have cost of living crisis, we have surging energy, we have global warming, we have a planet that may not be sustainable into the future. So, we are really trying to provide that financial wellness and stability for ourselves, our families, our loved ones, whoever that might be. Now, this is really different to the way things were pre-COVID. What we were seeing is that work-life balance. There was even something that was called workplace belonging, which would be under balance and well-being, I suppose. But that financial driver being number one is actually a big shift. And the last time we saw that was after the GFC. That was when REM was the number one driver. It continued to fall down, and I think it was at about number 4 prior to COVID in the SEEK data report, and it's now shot right up to the top. Okay. And what I find interesting is flexible working arrangements is what we feel is a number one driver. We've all been talking about that throughout the COVID period and the recovery from the COVID period for our workplaces. When I say recovery, I mean, our workplaces returning to either a hybrid model or, an in-person model for a lot of things. I assumed that was going to be the number one driver for people. Okay, but then...
But I guess how you just mentioned before, how interconnected now this financial component and the flexible working arrangements, because the flexible working arrangements actually help us to save money. So there is definitely the interconnection there.
100%. And I think I talked about how we want to work as well is changing for a lot of people, and people like myself, where we want to have that control of our financial well-being, and that may not be earning an annual salary. So REM might mean something very different for someone like me. People have side projects, side hustle. I don't like the word side hustle, but I'll use it anyway. But, they have their own entrepreneurial talents that they're nurturing in the background because they want to have other revenue streams coming in to support their financial well-being. Things like around flexibility could be financial flexibility, things like novated leasing. There are organizations that pay you in advance that have almost like a credit model in place, which is really fascinating. And we're seeing a lot of that evolving. And anyone that wants more information about that, I do have a contact that can share more with you. But that's more about, not waiting for payday. It's almost like a pay advance that companies are providing salary credit.
My company does it.
Your company does it. There we go. Well, I don't need to share anything. Yana's got it. So that's really interesting. So I'm keen to hear how that works. I'm sure people on the webinar would be keen as well, because that is a real core example of financial flexibility.
Yeah. So if you're a permanent employee with us, then we'll basically pay you monthly, but we pay you in advance. So you basically don't need to wait for a whole month to get your salary. You get your 2 weeks in advance straight away.
Okay, fantastic. And there's more and more of this happening. So there is an intertwine in terms of, offering work flexibility is actually impacting financially. So we're seeing that people are saying the most important thing to me is that money going into my bank account. I need it. Flexibility is often around the money not going out of the bank account. So there really is a strong synergy between the two, and it's quite interesting data. And you can kind of see an element of flexibility in a lot of what's up there as well. I talked about career and flexibility around career, and I think something that I find companies really need to focus more on, I think you see in technology, you see a lot of this in startups and companies that are going through growth periods or scale up organizations, where Position flexibility, not being hired into a role that is going to remain that role for a period of time. I think people view career progression with more of a lens of that freedom to create, that flexibility to create a role around their skills as their skills develop. So no longer having that linear career path, organizations that are flexible in what a role could look like. And that could be cross-functional or cross-divisional as well. You might have someone within delivery, like a delivery manager. I keep thinking of that because Jason's on the call.
Jason's here, yeah.
You could have a head of delivery or a delivery manager in your organization that has a real passion for marketing, and they, or a real passion for product. So how do you evolve their role to nurture that passion and give them that opportunity where that role of a delivery manager could become something else? And I think organizations that do that well are really, and it's rare, but it is happening, and we're seeing more and more of it. And as I said, it's more likely in an organization that's scaling. That is going to be a core driver for retention, offering position flexibility.
And I'm totally agree with this, Eden, in terms of the position flexibility, because, so often we're trying to, fit the people into that description instead of, looking for their strengths and finding what they're good at. And in my opinion, actually, I guess taking it to the next level, but I feel like this, position flexibility, it's even more important than diversity and inclusion. Because, we talk so much about diversity and inclusion, where for me, it often comes down to that position flexibility, where we're talking, we need more women in the leadership. But what we do, we put the same position description and just trying to offer to a different person. And, and that's where I think that diversity is not happening because our position description is so fixated sometimes, and we're not offering that flexibility. So I think that's I guess maybe it's a strong opinion here, but for me, this is actually the way to resolve some of these diversity and inclusion problems is actually position flexibility rather than trying to balance, I don't know, gender in a team or something like that.
Jana, I couldn't agree more. And I'm going to be bold as well and tell you that I absolutely hate position descriptions. And it is coming from a D&I lens. There are statistics that show that, let's look at our neurodiverse population. If they're applying for a role and they're presented with a position description, a lot of our neurodiverse candidates will feel that they need to tick every single box. There's statistics around that females want to make sure that they are ticking the core requirements of the role before they apply, whereas men will just throw their hat in the ring. Women are much more, and I don't mean to generalize, but there are statistics around that they're much more considered in their approach to how they apply for a position. I feel that box cutter, you must have X amount of years of experience. That's ageist as well, right? In both ways, against younger people, against older people. And who's to say that someone would have gained the same experience or will learn at the same pace as another person? Position descriptions are terrible for D&I. For so many reasons. Go on. This isn't a D&I one. So
that's we can open the can of worms here, and that's the kind of the massive discussion. I think it needs to be a separate stream about just talking about position descriptions, how they created. I think I would like actually to bring our attention back to our comments, because we haven't interacted with some with people on the stream a bit, and we have a few questions coming up. Jason actually is asking, we keep talking about Jason. What do you think about companies like Apple who claim their secret sauce is people coming together in person to solve problems? They're aggressively pursuing an agenda of getting people back to the office and getting a backlash for it.
Yeah. look, they certainly are getting backlash of it. I think, the boldness of the likes of Apple and Tesla that are actually, doing that is due to the strength of their brand, really, and the strength of their technology, that people still want to work for them. But there is a lot of backlash in the market. I think, it's an interesting observation that these people make, that they feel that people coming together in person will help them solve problems more effectively. I'm yet to see someone provide any form of data or proof to that
I think
statement.
like from my experience, the thing is like sometimes when you have like little problems, and if you're in the office and you have just a really question to ask your colleague, in the office it just could be way quicker. You see then the colleague like off the phone or off the meeting, and you can just quickly come up and ask this question. Where sometimes maybe in digital world it takes you a while to like try to set the meeting, try to ping them, like what I mean. So I think like in terms of like brainstorming and asking quick questions, maybe we do need sometimes to get together to resolve it. But when we're concentrating on the autonomous task, most of the time there is no need to no need to be in office. So but yeah, exactly, I'm curious to see that the statistics that companies like Apple is actually backing it up, and what I think we haven't seen the strong statistic yet in terms of what's working, what's not.
And, you could argue that either way. I don't think that, we're seeing the research in terms of what people's preferences are, but we're not actually seeing, what is the effectiveness in terms of productivity or team connection, or being able to Jason's point, solve problems more effectively. But I think the problem is, and I agree with you there, Jana, we need to have that ease of accessibility when we're working in an environment that I believe will continue, where some people are face-to-face and some are actually digital, and how do we all connect together? I think that what's worked to, I guess our detriment really is we got a little bit meeting frenzied. Everything became online meeting into people's diaries, and that ability to be able to your point, tap someone on the shoulder and be able to do that via Slack or Teams or whatever channel you actually use in your workplace has become really difficult, because we've formalized things into 1 hour meeting slots and things like that. And people are tackling that, and they're trying to shorten meetings, and they're trying to encourage people not to have meetings for the sake of meetings. But our diaries got really clogged up, and I think we're stuck in that rut at the moment, and makes that really hard to get that instant response from someone, for sure.
Yeah. That's another like I guess big topic of the improving this, the remote working arrangements. Christina has a question as well. It's interesting to hear that the reason for flexibility is financial needs. Many people have been asking for compensation to work from home with the office setup, increase of electricity and heating. How would you explain this?
That's really interesting. I do believe that an organization has the responsibility to ensure a safe working environment in terms of an office setup. So I do believe that an organization needs to ensure, and if that is financially, that someone's workstation is, from an OH&S perspective, is safe and is not going to cause, any injury. And I don't feel that, we necessarily need to pay that out of our own pocket. There are some things that we can claim on our taxes. Not everyone can do that. So just like you would ensure that an adequate workstation was set up by providing, the right monitors, the right ergonomic chairs, etc. I do think that's a reasonable request. Increase of electricity and heating, I'm probably thinking that's taking it a little bit too far.
I think my petrol at the moment canceling my heating. So basically what I'm spending on heating at the moment, and I'm sitting on the heater right now. So heat under my desk constantly because Melbourne, hello. But I feel like, in terms of expenses, my petrol expenses kind of, equalize my heating expenses. So,
tend to agree. And commuting, all those things that we talked about, you're saving money on. I think electricity and heating is going a little bit too far. I think in these scenarios, it's coming down to what is fair, what feels fair, what have been our obligations when people do actually work from the office. And I think a workstation is an obligation for a company and an organization. I don't think electricity and heating are, just like public transport isn't, that those are personal expenses in terms of,
But
yes.
yeah, I'm actually, curious once, that Christina actually pointed this topic. I would be actually curious to see who thinks that they spending more working from home and who thinks they, spending less working from home. That's, curious to see, like, how everyone feels about it as well. So I probably still feel that I'm spending less by working from home. Definitely, like, that's kind of my observation, in terms of petrol and buying lunch out and the things like this. Heating probably my only big expense, because I hate when it's cold. But then in the office is all this battle for this air conditioner. Then everyone wanted like on 22 and I wanted on 26.
Absolutely. Hey, and you know what, Christy, it's a really thought-provoking that I hadn't considered it, what Christina has shared there. I mean, some organizations might put that into their EVP, their employer branding proposition. It could become the new employee benefit, that everyone will be lining up to work for the organization that is actually contributing to household expenditure. Who knows? It's like,
but then we can compare companies like Google, who like providing lunch, and if you go to the office you have food and drinks there, so that's a different different comparison. So it's cheaper to go to the office in this case if you live close to the office and you can eat for free. So
totally. It could become a new thing. Like I keep saying, this whole work flexibility is continuing to evolve and change, and it's this beast that just never ends. And I'd never considered that employees are asking around heating and electricity. So I'm really, really glad you shared that with us today.
I definitely claim my electricity as a self-employed before.
Well, percentage of it, on your tax for sure.
So it's obviously bits and pieces. But so guys, if you have something to add to this, how's your electricity bills going? Did you get the $150 refund? I did claim mine $250, so I feel like I saved as well.
Fantastic.
So coming back to, I guess, to our statistics and stuff. So what else do you see?
So look, there's a few. There are three different audiences here, and again, thank you so much to Lensa for sharing this incredible information. So this is really for people that have been within a company and haven't changed in the last 12 months. We've got switchers that have recently moved jobs in the last 12 months, and intenders, those with the intention of changing changing companies in the coming 12 months, and what their key drivers are. So it's quite interesting. So we might have a look at the stayers. Those those team members that you've got are really stable. Again, 55% of them, the most important thing to them is salary and benefits. And you see career progression sort of falling down there as it's equal number 2, but flexible work arrangements for those people that have already been within your organization is lower. Okay, and then you've got, particularly in technology, the financial health of an organization due to what we're seeing in the US, I suppose, where a lot of startups that are having to either change or some that haven't made it through the economic conditions. I'm trying to be as PC as I can there. So it's really interesting that the key driver for people that have, and these are arguably the most important people within your organization, because they're at that point where they've really settled into their role and they really are starting to contribute really effectively, that salary and benefits are really important to them. So our rises that are not, we keep, I don't want to get political either here, Jana, but, we talk about, wage growth and how our wage growth isn't catching up to inflation. So how can organizations more effectively support their key players in their organization in terms of their rem and ben, because they will go somewhere else. So that's going to be the key driver for them to look at other opportunities. Your 1% to 3% increase is not going to have as much power as an organization that is, lifting for new hires 10 to 20%. It's something that we really need to consider. And the very traditional retention programs, we will find, are not going to be working because people need that financial support now. Everything that we've talked about in terms of the economy, being on a retention program where you are paid a certain amount for staying after 12 to 18 months, which is the way most work, that's not going to mean anything. People need the money now. So if they can get more money elsewhere now, that 18 months is for a lot of people is not going to be an effective driver to keep them. So we need to be thinking more and more about our REM strategy. And I think the way we've always done it traditionally isn't working for the current climate and the current economic conditions.
Yeah. So again, this, the driver by the financial crisis. Yes. And so with the switches, same situation with the switches.
Right. And the reason this is so important is because when we were looking at the previous data of the people that have been within the organization for 12 months, those people will switch for 58%. That would be very easy to get them to become a switcher. So these people, flexible working arrangements, those who have started a new job recently, it's really, really important. And that's showing in the last 12 months, the growth of that and how important that has become. But again, people have changed jobs in the last 12 months for salary, as I was talking about those key ones that you want to keep. So, it's there. The data's telling you they're leaving for that reason. Yeah.
Yep. As much we want to believe that, money is not that important,
the
data shows otherwise.
Absolutely. And it's more than just the salary package, as we keep saying. It's that financial flexibility, being able to support and offer something different and being able to tailor what that financial package looks like to the individual at a personalized level, rather than it just being, here is your salary plus super every year, and every employee is on the same, same model, same framework, same REM increase every year. We've got to be more flexible in our approach to REM.
Yeah, definitely. And, that's, I think we talk about it in one of the live streams as well. So that sometimes organizations don't realize what they can offer, all this like shares, options, bonuses. Yep. There is so many different ways to look at this problem. It doesn't mean that, you have to give everyone, like suddenly increase everyone's base salary. So you can work around on some different, bonus structure and share structure and, the returning bonuses, sign up bonuses, like, and so on and so on.
Or even the access to a financial advisor is another benefit that we're seeing a lot. And you also see that attached to EAP, our employee assistant programs as well. You'll see that, financial coaching is available. But some organizations are introducing, that you will have free access to a financial planner that will help you better manage that salary that comes through. And that is a, financial driver for people. That falls into that REM and benefits category. So the more and more we see of that, I think the more creative organizations get, to your point, on how they can promote financial well-being and financial flexibility for their people. It's not just the pay packet, I suppose. Although the pay packet's really important, as we keep seeing.
Yeah, because we keep seeing it with intenders as well.
Yeah.
Same statistic.
Exactly. So people who are intending to move once again for salary and benefits. But interestingly, flexible work arrangements. So those ones that have been with you for less than 12 months, that flexible work arrangements was lower. The people that have recently moved, it was a key driver for them. The people who are intending to move, it's a very key driver for them as well. Okay, so, it's interesting to see on that. We talked about the financial well-being of the organization with what's going on in the UK, that in the US, sorry, that's down the bottom. So a company being financially stable being at the bottom versus what's going into my pay packet, it's an interesting stat. Yeah.
And again, I guess that shows that this is a result of the word financial crisis.
Yep.
As as simple as it is sounds, but then there is some sort of tension and fear around financial stability. Obviously, the things like salary and benefits will go straight to the top. I think, look, I'm just cautious about the time as well, Eden. So we're already in the 50 minutes mark of our live stream. And we need to finish at 6:30 on the dot.
I did tell you I was a talker. Sorry.
So I think there's a few other good points there. If you go to statistics, we can quickly go through, just make sure we're not getting over time. But guys, also it's your chance to, if you have last question or some comments, please pop it in the comments if you want us to answer it now. So I think it's a really good few statistics. What is actually important and motivate people right now that you share here. And I think I've read it just before we went live, and I think what I've noticed, and I think I even noticing it now while I'm talking to people, that before it was quite important for people to know what they're working, like technology and the project and what technology they're going to work with, the use of new technology. That was often a big motivation. But I think that's what we see in the statistics, and it feels like from my conversation it started dropping as well. And people don't really talk about, the ideal project or ideal technology they want to work with. They start talking more about that financial stability and, the work flexibility rather than the project and technology.
I find that as well with candidates that I'm speaking to. So that's really interesting, and I'd love to see. I'm hoping we see some research around that, because it does tend to be the candidate conversations I'm having, the first things they ask me. It's interesting, isn't it?
It's definitely we can feel some changes.
So I'll just talk about a few of these. I know we are running low of time in case there are some people. I talked about wage growth, right? Look, 28% of people that have changed roles in technology in the past 12 months saw an up to 16 to 20% pay increase. Like, it's crazy. Those people would have probably got a 3% at the most if they remained in their role. That is huge. So we need to change how we approach our REM cycles, our performance cycles. Any organization that is able to tackle this is going to be in the driver's seat. It's so important, and I'd love to see some creativity around this on how people approach it. Interestingly, the number one driver for female respondents is actually flexible working arrangements versus, male that was around Rem and Ben. However, when it was averaged out, we did see that strong percentage, over 50%, was around Rem and Ben. So I think that was important as we talked about D&I.
And we're coming back to, I guess, the kids and
totally
childcare arrangements. And so I think that makes total sense.
Yeah. And again, 53% are attracted due to work-life balance. That can be around flexibility. It can be beyond that as well. Attractive salary, we know, is the leading motivator. I just want to end on this last one that I find really interesting in terms of geographical, and that Brisbane respondents believe that if they were able to work in an organisation outside of Brisbane, they would get more money. Okay, and I think this is it's so fascinating, and I don't know why Brisbane people feel that way, but it's in the data. And I think, if we encourage workplace flexibility in terms of geographical, you can work from anywhere, any location within Australia. There are limitations overseas, obviously, if you're not an employing entity in that region. But if you're an organisation in Melbourne, you will have a greater chance of attracting people from Brisbane because they feel that their rem and bends, and if it is accurate, is below market. So they're more likely to have a conversation with you. So any tech recruiters on the line, and Jana and myself can learn from that. Target Brisbane, right? There's
I think it makes sense because cost of living, I would think, increase in Brisbane recently because so many people moved to Queensland and Brisbane chasing the sunshine during COVID. So I think that went to like rent increase and property increase in Brisbane. And I think maybe not all the salary actually caught up with the cost of living that probably raised in Queensland during the COVID.
Yeah, I don't know. And I don't know whether maybe Brisbane isn't as much of a tech hub as Melbourne and Sydney.
That's true too.
Yeah, but I just find it fascinating because this is a technology survey, right? That 59%, it's a huge proportion.
Do we have anyone from Brisbane listening? Please let us know.
There you go. I find it really, really fascinating and definitely now on my target list more than ever.
Yeah, and I think also we can see that's, I think, quite interesting as well. The desire for career growth has slightly dropped since the last year as well. So I think again, talking about that, focusing on the salary and financial stability.
But again, what does career growth mean to people? Has that dropped because they feel that career growth is actually more around position flexibility and the ability for them to be able to craft a role rather than having a linear career pathway?
And go, and just moving up
Who knows? I mean, I might be wrong, but I'm making that assumption that could be playing a part in that drop.
Yeah. And yes, we'll definitely have more and more, data as we coming out of the COVID and, coming out of the crisis, hopefully coming out from the crisis. Like, let's touch media or coming into the crisis. Don't quote me on that. So anyway, so it's definitely I think will be some changes coming up that we will see the work flexibility not only in tech industry but across the industries as well. So definitely will be interesting to see with the big companies pushing people back to the office. I would be really curious to see how it will go if the people keep going for the bigger companies because they feel more stable, safe, and they're happy to come back to the office because they feel, just more safer working for NAP or NZ, and they're happy to go back to the office because they have this, at least perception of certainty and work continuity. Instead of working for the flexible startup where they can work remotely, but maybe they will be worrying more about how long this gig gonna last.
Yeah, and look, absolutely. I think it's important to also highlight that there is nothing wrong with wanting to work in an office full time. It's all around, right? It's all around choice and what works for you, and
we used to do it, yeah,
and it's something that works for a lot of people, and they do have that as a preference because they enjoy working in that environment. And I know you have next week you have Sandra Lim talking about the 4-day work week as well, and we might find with that. That people are actually desiring to work more in the office if they're actually having that extra day of a weekend. I think there'll be a lot of really interesting insight in Sandra's presentation. I can't wait to hear about it. I know Sandra well. She's wonderful. So
so we're talking with her next Wednesday, usual time, 5:30 p.m. And Sandra's worked for one of the companies that's been working, doing 4-day week for probably a few years now. So they moved to the 4-day week, I think 2 years ago. So would be nice to see what's or maybe a bit less, but it was doing around COVID that they moved to 4-day week. So would be curious to see her observations and how it's improved actually employee engagement and motivation and so on, and if they're actually getting done the same as they would in 5 days.
Yeah, and having that time back, it may be a driver that people actually want to spend more time in the office and in the city because they've got that extra day. It could, things like the 4-day week could throw all this flexibility out the window. You just never know. It's constantly changing. Yeah.
So guys, make sure obviously to join me next Wednesday to talk to the conversation with Sandra and Edan. So just to finish up this live stream, we have literally 10 seconds. But can you please share some your favorite inspirational quote, or some sort of live statement that you live by, or
a live statement I live by. Oh, look, that's
it's a hard one. I know it could be really simple, or some inspirational quote that you maybe read recently and it just really stuck in your head.
Well, no, I think for me, look, the one thing that motivates me every day is creativity, and really having that freedom to express and explore and be curious. So I think if I was to, and it's going to be a short quote and that I'm going to share with everyone that I feel that everyone should live by, is be curious. I think it's the most important thing to have in your life. It's the most important attribute for an individual. Constantly be curious, constantly challenge, and be creative in that thought. I think is really important. So I'm not going to quote some philosopher. I'm going to quote me. Be curious.
Be curious. Great. Yeah. And I do agree. We do overlook creativity quite often, especially in time of crisis, when we're thinking about, how to survive, how to make money. And we put all our creative projects, in a bit of a side, where in reality, it's surprising how creative project can re-energize us, bring us this energy and help us to make more money, because we're just more motivated and more energized.
100%. There's a philosophy I live by.
There you go. So thank you, Edan. So everyone on the stream, so be curious, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks, Jana. Thanks for having me.